Hey there, everyone. I'm DM Rawlings, the 10-Minute DM. I'm an experienced Forged in the Dark GM, and I want to offer my advice 10 minutes at a time. So today we're going to break into an exciting subject for me, which is an introduction to complications. Coming up with clear, impactful consequences is probably the second most important thing that a Forged in the Dark GM is going to do beyond maybe running the assignments and being the eyes and ears of the character. It's also really tricky for non-Forged in the GMs to master because it's unfamiliar to a lot of GMs and it puts people on the spot. And learning how to best fail forward is something that takes quite a bit of practice. Complications are a huge category for us, so this video is going to cover the basics, and then we're going to have several follow-up videos that go through this as well. So let's get into it and set up some context. So I'm going to use the same scenario that I used in my How to Run an Action video. I'll put a link for that up here-ish. And that is, Robin and Kelly are members of Candela Obscura. There's some kind of eldritch beast from beyond the flare that's escaped, and as they enter the location, they come across a civilian who's been cut up by the beast. The injury is clearly very severe and supernatural in nature, and obviously Robin wants to ask some questions of the victim, but they're so hurt that Robin's going to have to administer some first aid. We have normal stakes here, and they end up not rolling a 6. So, with that situation in mind, let's talk about the 5 broad and often overlapping categories of consequences as laid out in Blades in the Dark. So the first one is reduced effect, and that is, things don't work out as well as you'd like. An example of that might be, with a mixed success, you're able to apply bandages, it looks like they're going to make it. Unfortunately, they've passed out from the strain, and it may take some time for them to be well enough to speak. So you got what you want, you were able to save the civilian, and you're able to have that discussion with them, but it's not going to be immediate, and that may end up being a problem. And it's worth mentioning, reduced effect only usable on a mixed success. If it's an outright failure 1 to 3, then you should probably pick a different category here. So, second up, we have harm. And this one's really easy. Someone's going to take body, brain, or bleed harm. I'd argue it's the least interesting of all of the different complications that are out there. Let's walk through a couple of examples. Say you had a mixed success. You managed to purge the wound of supernatural influence, but notice that some of the black ichor stained your flesh. Go and take a bleed. Or maybe it was a failure. We can go, the wounds are beyond your skill, but still you try. As the last bits of their life trickle from their body, you curse that you could not do more for them, and you take 1 brain. So both of these examples where you're suffering some kind of harm to your person. Third up, lost opportunity, and this is a consequence where there's a change in circumstances. Some kind of figurative door closes. So in a mixed success example, the civilian tries to relate their story, but unfortunately they were struck from behind and they didn't see much. So when you're questioning them later, you just don't get as much information as you would have hoped because there was a mixed success, or maybe it was a failure. And then you might do something like, the body crumbles to ash as the civilian's supernal injuries overwhelm them. Not only are they dead, but even an autopsy would glean nothing here. So the opportunity to get information from this person is modified in some kind of way. There's a lot of other uses for this too, but let's just stick with that for now. Fourth, we have a complication. There's some kind of new trouble or threat that appears. And I'll just give one example here that could be true of a mixed success or a failure, which is, as you treat them, the door swings open and a well-dressed man walks in, flashing an Office of Unexplained Phenomena badge. Note that the consequence here isn't really meaningfully attached to the action, right? This is more than okay. Very often you can have a consequence that happens for an action that in no way is a direct result of the thing that you were trying to do. Maybe you're trying to pick a lock and, a guard walks into the room. It's not your fault, you were trying to pick a lock, but the story gets more complicated, and that is an example of that happening. Next up, we have worst position. So, in this circumstance, the stakes get higher, whereas before we were at normal stakes. As a result of this, the stakes are going to go too high. An example being on a mixed ore failure, as you treat them, you'll hear a nearby inhuman howl. The creature smells new prey. So whether the civilian lives or dies here, the players are now in over their head because this supernatural creature has drawn their attention, and they're going to have to deal with that in a high-stakes situation. So those are the 5 that are laid out in Blades in the Dark. I thought I'd throw in a special bonus one here, a loose end. So a loose end is something you didn't address or notice while you were in the middle of the assignment. And I pulled this from External Containment Bureau, which is also about paranormal investigators, Forged in the Dark kind of game. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. So let's just walk through a couple of examples, say with a mixed success. You treat the civilian entirely unaware that they're a curious journalist. They'll surely remember your face. Or maybe with a failure, the civilian is beyond your ability to treat. Unbeknownst to them, their family is influential in New Fair, and they are likely to ask many uncomfortable questions. So these have to do with situations where something got away, and as members of Candela Obscura, having these kind of loose ends can complicate things in the future, or possibly draw the flack of your Lightkeeper. So that's pretty much my piece there. I hope that you've found this useful, but I will point out a couple more things, and that is that consequences always should reflect the stakes of a roll. So if you have low stakes versus high stakes, then your complications are going to be different. And again, consequences should never undo a success. So even when you have a reduced effect, it's not going to totally take away the fact that you were successful. You did the thing. Anyways, I've been DM Rawlings, the 10-Minute DM, and if you are enjoying what you see so far, please hit subscribe. It would really help out. Have a great day.